when Mila's born, it really just calmed you down so much.
Yeah.
I would have to imagine, like, I knew in Chicago when stuff wasn't going well, those 0 for 4s, those bad days at the office were a lot easier to forget about because it is now, it's all about the kids.
Exactly.
I could not imagine how that had to have helped you, and it's helped players, because instead of going home, being in your apartment by yourself or with, you know, your significant other, you are still definitely thinking about your performance, but the kids, like you say, wipe it all out.
Yeah, they want to play. They want to have fun. They want dad. You know, they don't want the baseball player. They want dad. They might want to go play baseball, but like, they want to hang out with their dad. They want to be around me. And it's like, I'm not going to drag my little girl down that I went 0 for 5 today with 5 punchies. Like, and she doesn't care. She'd be like, it's okay, Daddy, get him next time. I'm like,
right.
Oh, this is a cool one. I'm actually really excited for this one.
We got the real boss on this.
I've got the shovel this week. I'm doing the digging this.
Take this too. Have my show as well. Go ahead. Let's go.
hey, what's yours, or what's hers is hers, and what's yours is hers.
No.
Is that how it works? Is that?
You got a new door.
You are
No,
the guy.
what is hers is
Yes.
Go.
Yes.
his
I
is
have
hers.
No
There you
chance.
go.
Yeah, you're done. You're such a tool
done.
bag.
I need you, buddy. How do I do this?
We're just winging it, bud. Just try not to fuck up too many times, and learn when you fuck up.
Moose is my guy. Moose was always my guy that I would call and be like, all right, Moose, how do I do this? All right, we got a baby on the way. How do I approach this? We have this happening. How do I do this? So I've said this before when we had you on as a guest, but I think you and I not only look up to Moose and Steph as a couple, as a family and all that, but before I met Case, I've always looked up to you guys and what you guys have had and said, you know, I want that for myself one day. And I think that's something that, like you said, there's no book on how to do this.
Yeah.
And not only that, but our lifestyle of constantly being on the road, constantly being gone, the real MVPs are the spouses of a lot of these athletes, because they continue to keep the house going, which I have no idea how Steph does it.
Well, I don't either. I appreciate that a lot. And it's funny because, you know, when I got home from spring training, didn't make the team, and I'm like, all right, I'm kind of settled into this new role of like being home all the time. And I'm home all the time. And like for like a week or so, I'm like, where are you going all the time? Like, Stephanie, like, what are you doing? Like,
Because I asked you, I go, who's doing all the pickups and drop-offs? And you're like, me?
yeah, I love it. I love the pickups and drop-offs. It's the best. But like during the middle of the day, like, I'm like, where are you? Like, what is going on? Like,
We have so many things to do.
yeah, she's like, she goes to work out, and then she goes to lunch, and then like she comes home, and then she has to go do this and that. And like, I completely forgot that outside of me, like, she has a life that she lives. Like, when I'm gone at the field all day long, she is still doing all these things. I'm like, oh my God, like, that's wild to like actually see it like firsthand. I'm like, holy shit.
It's also really hard. And I wish Steph was here right now. I wish Melissa was here right now, but it's difficult. And Eric and I had that transition period where like that was my time. Like I want to do what I want to do. That was the curtain. I could go get my hair blown out. I could get whatever treatments done, my facials, and then I just show up to the game looking like a beauty queen. And Eric's like, wow, she just woke up like this. And it's just magical. But it's nice to have that time. But it's nice. It's so nice having you guys home. We love it.
It was wild because I'm like, I thought like when I was done playing, we're just gonna sit on the couch and watch TV all day. It's gonna be great. No, like she kept living her life. I'm like, oh, that's great, dude. Like,
How hard is it, you think, from a mental standpoint for a lot of the spouses of professional athletes? Because it's like you have such pressure as an athlete and you're dealing with all this at the field, and obviously there's a lot of coverage, there's a lot of media, there could be stuff said, positive or negative, whatever it is. And then you go home and it's hard not to be frustrated when you go home. And then Casey's like, listen, like I get this is going on, but like this is the house. We got to have a positive attitude now. So can only imagine how that wears on you. But from a mental side, I'm sure you hear from spouses all the time voicing certain things that like, this is hard, huh?
Oh my goodness. I can't wait to hear what you have to say
Well,
about
you've heard
this.
it from me already because full disclosure, Eric and I have enlisted your help because nothing is rainbows and butterflies.
That is so true. It's so funny. Whenever we got a new player who got traded to the Rays or whatever, the first question I would always ask is, how's your wife? And he's like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you said that, because a lot of times as we think about the player coming in to make an impact and being part of a new squad, a new clubhouse, what we don't talk about is the spouse with the kids and moving homes and leaving her friends from the other team. There's a lot that goes on. And then players will go home and they'll just be like, I don't know how to communicate with my significant other. I just had a bad day, but my wife had a bad day with the kids, and it gets very, very difficult. So I'm curious, I'm here to learn from you all. How do you all do that?
So one thing that we've said, which is also cool about doing podcasts now, because Case can help me not talk with my hands and do these weird things I'm doing, but I can get legit feedback from Case.
Sometimes too much.
Sometimes when not asked for, but the thing that's hard about baseball is like, I'm frustrated because of how certain things went at the field. Obviously, when I got to San Diego, it was one of those situations where it's like, all right, I'm trying to create a culture. I'm trying to build something in the clubhouse for these young guys, and how some things were ran over there, I would get super, super frustrated. And Case is like, I want to talk to you about these things, but I would always say like, it's hard to talk to you about these things because I don't know if you know the baseball lifestyle, what is going on in the clubhouse, what it should be. And those are a lot of the things that I bounced off of you, because I needed to voice these frustrations. I needed to vent to somebody. And like Case said, now being able to talk to you, it is so helpful to voice all this stuff instead of, like you say, sometimes it's all bottled up and it just dispersed out. So I know with you and Steph was always there for you in a way that she knew how to help you, even if it wasn't on the baseball field. But like, how did you guys get to that place? Because we have worked really hard to get to the place we are now. And obviously it's not going to be the smoothest ride.
Yeah. I mean, I love Stephanie, and I think that's like where it all starts, is how much love you have for your significant other. And you guys,
That is the one thing. Like, everyone knows how much you guys love each other.
yeah. So like, and there's just the utmost trust in everything that like we do together, separately. Like, it's awesome. It's a special feeling to have that love and trust and be able to, have that throughout my entire career. And then, when I think we talked about it earlier on my episode was, Steph would never call me an hour before the game. She would always like, hey, good luck, I love you. And then right before I go out on the field, like I text her every time, like, I love you. And she said, I love you back. That was my one superstition was I couldn't go on the field until I got the I love you back. I'm like, all right, now we go.
Love that.
But so like, I think her being around it for as long as she has, and the women that she had in Kansas City, like showed her how to do things a little bit the right way, you could say. Like, those women in Kansas City were awesome, like just great role models, and able to, kind of take Stephanie under their wing too and show her that it's not easy, but they all make it look so easy, and it's incredible.
She also knew you since high school. I mean,
Yes.
You guys, high school sweethearts, and then went with you through everything. What mental side of it, and maybe it's even subconscious, was like, she was there before I was Mike Moustakas, the savior of Kansas City, who
that's a-
lit that fuse. Maybe there's a subconscious thing. Like, she believed in me before people were naming kids and dogs after me.
Yeah.
That is pretty tight.
Yeah. She loved me for me. She didn't care if I was a baseball player or not. So like, if I made it to the big leagues, like at one point, like there was an earlier point in my career where I was about to hang them up because I didn't really feel like playing baseball anymore. I was over it. And I think it goes on with everybody. Like Lolo, you remember the clubhouse?
He was always ready.
I mean,
to be done.
at any point, but whatever I would have done, she would have loved me. So I think that it was special in the fact that we were able to do that and come through the minor leagues and do all this stuff together.
Moose mentioned the family section and how in Kansas City, a lot of those girls helped Steph out a lot. You got to witness that in San Diego because you and Yene were kind of the go-to wives if people had questions, or you guys were always, if the team's on the road, let's meet up and get lunch. So how important was that? But how cool was it? Because you got to experience both sides of it, being the young girlfriend in Kansas City, where obviously people don't know if my lifestyle at the time, if we're going to settle down. So they don't really understand or know if you're going to be there full time. But then San Diego, as the older girl, as the older, spouse of a player, when we had some young superstars that brought those girlfriends there, you made it a point to make them feel comfortable. So you've seen both sides of it.
I've seen both sides, and I was the girlfriend for a little bit in San Diego. Then I became the fiance. No,
Didn't
but
forget to mention that after every dinner we had.
I'm like, this girl got engaged and this girl got engaged. No, I mean, I think it's a tale as old as time with everyone, but it was the right thing for us. It was the right track. And we both had our careers. So that was something different. And it was hard for me to connect with the girls in Kansas City. I was working the morning shift on TV. So I couldn't go to a 6 o'clock game.
Yeah.
I mean, I did in the playoffs and the World Series run, and I was miserable and probably had like an eyelash up on my forehead the next morning. But those girls have something, and I do feel a part of that group of girls now that is unlike anything I've seen in all of baseball, in all, I call it civilian land too, like non-athletic women as well. That friend group is insane. You were saying all the girls were like, we're all moving to Kansas City so we can all spend more time together because we love each other so much. But it is hard to find friends and to find that group. And Sua and I were talking in him helping us with life and marriage and navigating that. And I said something to you. I said, baseball life is like a terrarium. It's like a fish tank. You have a GM who picks your friends for you guys and for us, picks your friends for you, and you're dumped in a fish tank. And I show up to the game at 6 or 7 o'clock and I'm seated with all of my new best friends. And we go on flights together and we're in hotels and we're at games. And that translating to life after baseball is difficult, to go and put yourself out there and to make friends and to open up about your feelings, or to your point, seek therapy or seek help. But it is such a beautiful thing in having those built-in friendships, but also the navigating of it, to your point, Hos. And it's like someone gets traded, a new person comes in, this friend is gone, she was your support system. So it is always changing, and there's a security in baseball, but it's a business at the end of the day. And you learn that sooner or later. You guys were both blessed in the sense that you were with Kansas City for so long. And Stephanie has those relationships with those girls that were formed over a decade of time, and they're going to last for her lifetime. But yes, in San Diego, I did meet more people and build those friendships. But when you do have different girls and different dynamics come in, it can get a little bit wild and crazy, but I think that's the same for everything.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said something that I really liked. In order to have a strong marriage and relationship with anything, it takes work. And I like that because, so there's the law of entropy, which basically says that when you don't do anything, it's going to go towards chaos. It's like a garden. If you neglect a garden, weeds are going to pop up. If you neglect a relationship and you don't work at it, you're not going to be stronger. You have to work at it. For the athletes that are watching this, and who they're probably going to send it to their wives as well, this episode right here, what advice do you all have after learning from success and the good times and the bad times? What advice do you have on how do you create a strong relationship with your significant other as a professional athlete?
I think the first big thing that certainly helped for us was identify basically the most important thing or most important need. So for me as a man, like we talk about this all the time, I want to feel respected, and I think you want to feel loved. So we simplified it and said, okay, let's just worry about this bucket. Let's not worry about anything else. Let's just focus on this. Deposit small wins. I loved how you say that. And we've gotten to a point now where I understand what Case needs, and she understands what I want, need. But I didn't grow up with two sisters. I didn't grow up with any female in my life besides my mother, and your mother's going to treat you a certain way. So I didn't know certain things that women needed. I thought if I told Kacie she was beautiful in the morning, I didn't think I would have to tell her she was beautiful 30 minutes later. I'm just kidding.
No, you're not.
But I think
tell me.
Don't stop doing it.
Those small wins and depositing those small wins, when I say these things and voice them, I see how long of a way it goes. And I think that's how we've been able to grow, is starting out simplifying it, starting out, what are these 2 buckets? And then you go from there. But probably something I'd lean on Moose and be like, Moose, help. What do I do in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, as far as being a professional athlete goes, you don't, like, we take it home. Like, this is our job. This is what we do. But, like, your significant other, your wife, your girlfriend, they don't want to hear how bad of a day you had. Like, they want to, but, like, every single night you come home and you're like, I stink. I'm the worst. I'm this, I'm that. And it's so solely focused on you. And that was what, when I was playing really bad in 2014, like, I'd come home and everything was so focused on me. And I never really asked how her day was as much as I should have. And, like, I'd come home and I'd get into bed and be like, damn, dude, I gotta go figure out how to get 4 hits. And then slowly, like I think you said, when Mila was born, it started to change me a little bit, because now, like, I have this beautiful little girl who doesn't care if I went 0 for 4. Like, Stephanie still cared if I went 0 for 4, but my daughter doesn't care, and she's happy that her dad's home. So I think finding a way to not take your work home with you, like, once you leave that clubhouse, that's it. And then until you get back to the field that next day, it's all about your wife and your family and your friends. Don't take it home. And I learned that pretty quickly and was able to, be a better husband and at that time, and then eventually be a father, which is the best thing in the world.
I want to bring you in on something, because you just triggered something in my brain, and it's, you see these Instagram reels and they get so many likes, and it's men talking about how it's like, you need to shoulder everything and you need to be the man. And if you have this burden, you should be proud of yourself because you're carrying that for your family's sake. And that is what you just said. Like, there is so much, it's so heavy. And it made me so sad. And I know it would make Steph sad too. It's like, no, tell me, like, I want to be here. Like, I want so badly. And I say this to you all the time, put it on me. Like, you put on a brave face and you will put things down and put others before yourselves. And I'm sure you do this too. And suppress your own emotions and your own needs because you want to be happy around your family. And what are the long-term effects of that? And that is what our generation, we talk about it on my podcast, is, I think, really open to, more so than our parents' generation, for sure. I know both of your fathers, it's like, I know what it was like, what they personified as men. And they were so tough and so strong. And that's why you guys are such amazing men. But how important is it to seek help with your partner and be vulnerable? And maybe if it's not with your partner, seek help from somebody else. I mean, we would be vulnerable with each other, but we needed a translator, as I told you on our first call.
That is so true what you said. And I don't know if I'm the best, because that's what I do as well. Like, it's hard to share your problems and your vulnerabilities sometimes. And then I'll ask myself, okay, why don't I share with my wife? Why would I? What are reasons why I wouldn't share? For me, it would be, I don't want to burden her with my problems. Very similar to what you said. It's going to come off as selfish, or she's going through issues that are worse than mine, or whatever it may be. But then I think, to the point, we've said it before, the longer you hold on to something, the heavier it gets. And if it's not your significant other, to your point, being able to, you have Moose, I have people I go to and share, hey, I'm struggling with this and and I don't need your advice necessarily. I just need somewhere to put this weight and just to think out loud and just let me know, not to minimize what I'm going through, but maybe normalize it. Hey, that's normal. That's okay. But for me, that's what I do. But easier said, finding the right person that you can trust. I think that's the hard part.
Yeah, and I was solely focused on performance-wise. Like, when you come home, like, you don't want to talk about that. Like, but the one thing that we always had in Kansas City was we had each other. And every clubhouse I've been in, like, you can sit there after the game, dissect what's going on, have a beer or two, and then once that's over, the next day's coming. So, like, I always leaned on my teammates, and, like, Stephanie was always there to listen to what I had to say. But, like, this guy's going through it too. So, like, we can talk it out and figure it out. And, like, after we leave, like, I feel great about myself. And then I can go home and be a productive husband and father after I've left the field.
We definitely had that in Kansas City. And that was what made our team just so special to be on, because good or bad, after games, we could sit there and we can literally laugh at how bad we played or a bad play happened. And it was like our way of just releasing it and getting it out there. when you get traded and you go to, especially a mid-season trade, you go to another team, the team is going full speed and you are jumping right into that team and operating as a teammate and trying to do this. What advice would you give a player that wants to have that separation? Listen, I feel right now I'm the new guy. It's the first couple of weeks. I don't feel like I have this group that I can release on stuff yet. What would be some advice? Because there was a hilarious interview in Tampa with a player there that I think a lot of people thought was funny in a way, but I honestly thought it was genius, some of the stuff he said. And the player was talking about, hey, I sucked today. It was an ordinary kind of suck. It was super funny. But at the end of it, he goes, it's going to be 10 o'clock here in about 14 minutes. I'm going to be done being pissed off about it. I'm going to go home, forgot about it, clean slate, come tomorrow. So what advice would you give a player if he came up to you and said, Sua, I need to figure out how to have this separation? And is it like listen to something on the way home? But like, what's your go-to for advice on that way?
So just so heads up, I'm gonna come to you for this question because you actually said it. That was actually funny. I was gonna ask you to clarify something you did, how you separate. So I'm gonna come to you, but there's a phrase, you can't change a system if you don't understand the current patterns of the system. I'm huge on self-awareness. So if a player comes up, he's like, I just need help separating. How do I get over a bad game? How do I not take this game home with me? The first thing we do is we collect information. We collect the data. Okay, why does it happen? Notice when it happens. Let's just collect information. And then in about a week, let's talk. He goes, okay, it takes me FID, frequency, intensity, duration. How frequent does it happen? How intense is it? And then how long does it last? Those are the three things that I want a player to understand. I'm not gonna come in and here's the answer. It's like, okay, let's gather some information and then let's approach it. And so then they'll come and they'll say, okay, well, it takes me, the intensity is a 10. Oh, after 0 for 4, but it's only a 5 if I get a hit. And you just find these clues and then you bake a routine into it. The same routine you have before a game, you can create a post-game routine. I know a guy who he would go to the shower. He wouldn't turn off the shower until he was ready to, he washed his body. He's like, I need to wash my mind. And once I turn the shower off, okay, I'm ready. He goes, I'll be in the shower for like an hour sometimes. He's like, sometimes a long time, but finding what works for you, which led to my question for you. What did you do to separate? How did you separate a bad day?
So I wasn't always good at it. And I'm again fortunate that Stephanie was always there for me. So like when I did come home and I was mad, she would always be there for me. And even towards the end of my career, like there'd be days where I just couldn't leave it at the field. I'd try, but I'd come home and Stephanie would always be there for me. So the way I did it when I was successful at it was like I just said, like I'd sit in the clubhouse and if I went 0 for 4, 4 strikeouts, like we talk about it while we're eating. And like you said, just voicing it out there. So seeing your thoughts instead of like holding them in your head, seeing them and being like, oh, okay, like I went 0 for 4. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that. And then you can laugh about it. But like that was my big time was after the games was hanging out with the boys. Like, and there was a couple teams I was on that like, it was after the game, we're showered, we're dressed and we're gone. I'm like, dude, like I need this. You guys might not need this, but I need this. I need to like vent to you guys so you can listen and make me feel better. So that was huge for me, which is what I love doing. I love being able to sit in the clubhouse, chop it up, make fun of him. You make fun of me, like, and it was huge for us, especially in Kansas City and even Milwaukee and the Reds. Every place I usually was, like, it was a lot of fun to be able to do that because you're sitting there playing with a potential Hall of Famer and you can make fun of him and he's making fun of you. It's awesome. And I think that's that camaraderie that we all search for because we're all going through it together.
Yeah. I'm actually curious on what you have to say about this, Kacie. So Hos goes 0 for 4 with 4 punchies, just a bad game. And
Experienced that a lot.
It's been a bad game. And you're there, you're watching, or you're at home watching, you're like, okay, like, all right. And you understand. How did you prepare to, I don't know, when he walks into the door or when you see him in the tunnel after the game, like, how do you help your husband navigate slumps or tough times?
I loved an adult beverage at a baseball game. So I was always like a little bit more loose. So sometimes I'd have to like not be like, Hus, hey. But no, I mean, it's a lot easier for me. I'm probably the wrong person to ask. He never brings stuff home from the field. If it's anything, it's like he's upset because he got in a conflict with a teammate or something happened with a coach or something like that. But if his performance wasn't what he wanted it to be on the field, he never came home and punched the microwave and, you know, yelled and screamed and anything like that. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask for that. And to your point, my struggle was like, let's talk about it. Do you want to talk? He's like, I don't need to talk about it. Like, I'm good. I'll get him tomorrow. You were very good at shaking it off and leaving it at the field. And I'm the problem because I want to dissect it and I want to create a vision board and I want to do it. And I had to learn, to your point, you said when you're upset, you just want somebody to listen. And something that I'm still working on almost a decade into us being together is just listening and not feeling like I have to fix it.
Yeah, and we talk about the work and how you need to work to get there, but we can both relate to this. We both got traded mid-season. So Case was like 6-7 months pregnant. I mean, Jack was going to be born
It's
at
35 weeks.
There you go. 35. So we get traded from San Diego, get a call this morning. Okay, you need to be in Kansas City on a flight tomorrow. We have a house packed with everything from us, for baby stuff. We need to be in Boston. We need to find a place to live. We need to move. We need to do all these things. And for me, it was such a relief and a help for me because I didn't have to worry about any of that. Cases like, just go focus on baseball. I will take care of all that stuff. So that was stuff that getting through that work, getting through that time, to hear Case say that took just the weight of the world off of my shoulders, because here we are ready to have a baby. Case is pregnant, ready to pop, and we have to move halfway across the country, find a house, move into that house, figure out where we're gonna have the baby born, find a new doctor. I mean, talk about the real MVP of a situation.
Always.
Same thing with Steph. I would love to ask Steph that. How do you go about that? That's so hard, but take us through that. So how were you able to take that release of stress off of me?
Here's the thing. I think it was very hard for both of us because we had a life that we had built in San Diego. We got engaged while we were with the Padres. I had, to your point, I made incredible friends there. I was like one of the team moms there, if you will. So it was difficult. I think when something like that happens, and you can attest to this because you've been traded before, is you're almost in a shock, like survival. And listen, there are military families. There are people who are in survival mode and people who do have husbands working with their literal lives on the line and first responders, and it's not the end of the world. Like, that's what I want to say right now. It is overwhelming. It is blindsiding. It is exhausting, but everyone has their health and happiness and it's all going to be okay. That said, I knew that you were going to Kansas City right away. So I was like, this is going to be a great first step for you. I had worked in Boston for 3 years with Nesson. So I was so excited to be going to Boston. My family's in Pennsylvania. If you're going to go to a new city, Boston is the biggest, baddest with healthcare. I mean, I'm like, I will find somebody to deliver this baby and it will be the tip top of care. So we moved, we found a place, moved in like 2 weeks' time. But you were such a support the whole time. I mean, you were right there with me. I will never forget, we had Jack, and I was for sure PPD, postpartum depressed, for sure. But I was, I think of myself as a very mentally strong person. We've all talked about our struggles and what goes on internally and the horrible things you tell yourselves. And I just denied it. I was like, I'm fine. I don't need medicine. I'm great. And I'll never forget, Jack was like a week old and you were holding him in our room and I was just crying uncontrollably. And I was like, I don't know what's wrong. I just have a bad mom and I was terrible. And you're like, I don't know what to say to help you, but you're not a bad mom. And I promise everything's going to be okay. And I'm here for you and I love you. And I was like, okay. But it was just terrible. Then you probably got me a glass of wine and it was fine.
And everything's
but,
fixed.
You learn as you go and nothing is perfect and nothing is foreseeable and hindsight is 20/20. And that's even what with this baby, I'm like, how are we going to do it? We're moving again, and it's a career change again, with you starting this podcast. And we talked about that. What is it called when everything changes at one time and it's a life change? There's two things that you said happen.
Oh, are you talking about the forming, storming, norming?
Yes, that one.
Oh, got it. Yes.
So how does that pertain to what goes on in baseball? Because at the surface, to your point, it's just like, oh, we got traded, we have to find a new house, and I'm going to wear a new uniform, and I have to make new friends.
Yes.
But that's not it.
That's so true. So what we were talking about is team dynamics. So a team will go through 4 stages. So you have the forming stage where you assemble the team, you meet your significant other, you get married, a new member of the family, forming stage. And then you go through the storming phase. This is where the annoyances start to pop up. You're like, why does he do that? Why does she do that? You just storm a little bit. You don't really know each other. And then the next phase is the norming. You start to normalize it. Oh, okay, that's just what he does. Oh, that is, you're not mad. You're like, okay, I understand him. And then the performing stage where you're running on all cylinders. Any change to the environment can take you all the way back to the storming phase, and you just keep going through it. And one of the things that we were talking about is if you have a change in your environment, the group that I always think about are the athletes who played in their sport for Major League Baseball for 10 years, and now you're not playing anymore. I think about that group of athletes and families all the time because that's a huge storm. It's a huge storm, not just for the player, but the whole family. Everyone has experienced it. Then you go through the norming, and then you go through the performing. And so everyone goes through it. So every time you...
Well, because they're in my clubhouse now during the day.
Exactly.
You were in your clubhouse.
Exactly.
Now you're in my clubhouse. And you want to be the captain of the club. I'm like, I'm the captain of the clubhouse.
Yes. And to your point, it comes down with that awareness. Okay, let's pause. What's going on right now? Let's talk about it. Let's normalize the situation. Let's create awareness around it, and just start from there, and then create a system and a plan around it. But it starts with admitting that, okay, there's a storm. I'm struggling. My feelings are hurt. We talk about that a little bit. And I've never been in this situation. I've played baseball my entire life, and now I'm not playing. All right, we got to make some adjustments. So that's hard.
Yeah. So going back to what you said about being traded and how, you guys got traded mid-season. So I've been traded twice, and every time I got traded, I signed the deal knowing I was going to get traded to another team. So, and it was discussed prior to me signing with things like, hey, Moose, listen, there's a good chance if things go this way, you're going to get traded. And I was like, all right, cool. And Dayton was very open and honest with me when I signed with Kansas City. So when we went to Kansas City, we knew we were going to get traded, but we didn't know where we were going. And then all of a sudden, boom, trade, Milwaukee, played there for 2 years, go to Cincinnati, have a little home base for a couple years, and then sign with the Rockies. And this is a crazy story that I wanted to get to. So we're playing the Angels in Colorado, okay? I don't play against a right-hander. I've all 4 of my kids there. Stephanie's there. We're in a condo downtown, playing the Angels in Colorado. I don't play the first day against the righty. I don't play the second day against the righty, and I didn't pinch hit. Or I didn't pinch hit the first game. I was like, man, this is kind of weird. And then I come into the field the next day, and I'm not in the lineup again. So it's the second game. I'm like, wow, what's going on? This is weird. I know I wasn't playing a lot, but these are good matchups for me. And I'm like, oh, I'm probably getting traded today. So I text Stephanie. I'm like, hey, babe, I think I might be getting traded. That day,
her stomach drops when she reads that.
Yeah, she knew it was going to happen, but it's it happens like that. And so you're on a bird the next day, but I got traded to the Angels. So I literally walk across the hallway to the Angels, and now I'm on the Angels. And that next day, I'm on the Angels team flight, and I leave Stephanie by herself with 4 kids, has to pack up a condo and move everything. And I'm like, there's nothing I can do to help. And she just knocked it all out. It was nothing. Boom, kids are packed. All this is packed. Everything's on its way. Don't worry, I got it. I'm like, and I never worried about it because I knew she always had it. It was always a done deal. And she never complained about it. It was always boom, done. I'm like, because there's literally nothing you can do. I was on the bird, gone. And she's packs up the whole house, 4 kids, let's roll.
But you're a very appreciative person. I mean, you are very vocal with her and you are very words of affirmation with Steph. So there is no doubt in her mind that you appreciate her breathing, you appreciate.
I do.
But here's the other thing. And you made a really good point about being all over the place and getting traded. When we moved to Boston, I was like, we need to buy a house. I don't know if we'll be here for 3 years for the rest of your contract. I don't know if we'll be traded again. I need to paint the nursery. Like I said this to you the other day. I was like, I need to paint the nursery. So how, and maybe this isn't true, but like was Steph's just overall well-being better when you bought the house in Cincinnati and when you lived in your home when you were with the Angels? Like how much more settled were you guys?
It was a lot easier.
As opposed to a rental, I should say.
Yeah, just because you know where everything's at, you know you're at home. But I think Stephanie would be fine anywhere we went. She was fine anywhere we went. It was more so the kids, like having a routine for the kids. What schools are they going to go to? Like trying to figure all that stuff out. And she always did it, man. It was incredible. And it's funny, like now we were talking about the guys that played 10 years and are no longer there, no longer playing, and now you're at home. And like, I want to help out as much as I can. But I realized something's like me helping isn't really helping. Like I'm like
you're hindering. You're not.
Yeah,
helping.
like because she's got it all under control. And so we were signing the kids up for camp the other day, and she's like, "Can you help me sign up the kids?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I'm like signing up the kids for summer camp and doing this and doing that. And like I'd ask her a question, and I'd ask her another question, and I'd ask her another. She's like, "Just like, are you helping?" I'm like, "I think so." Like. But
you're like, I'm just the secretary. I'll just dictate.
Yeah. And I was like, she already does all this exceptionally well. So like, now I'm like, you just tell me what to do and I will do it. Like, just make it easier for you. Tell me what to do. And she does it. And it's great.
But having school age kids is hard. I mean, there is a part of me, and this sounds terrible, but I'm almost glad that we are in the retirement phase before school because that is another added layer. Just finding a pediatrician. Jack has had 8 pediatricians so far, and there is nothing wrong with that. Baseball has afforded us a beautiful life. I am not going to say one negative thing about baseball ever, and that's how we met here in Kansas City. And I just can't imagine moving with school-age children. But you have a unique situation that you don't get to dive into that aspect, the at-home family, day-to-day boots on the ground. What's school like for a music star and an actress, and what does that look like?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So for those who don't know, so we have 3 children, 18, 17, 16 in October. It's been wild. But Eliana, our actor child, when she started going on set, she was gone all the time. And we tried to keep them in school as long as we possibly could, but got to the point to where she needed to be homeschooled. My son, who's a music producer, and he's leaving the studios at 15, 16 years old, he kept having to leave school as well. And so he had to go home, be homeschooled. And then my other daughter, Maya, she's like, okay, then I want to be homeschooled as well. Yeah. Like if they're going to stay home and chill, then I'm going to be home as well. So it's very unique because Eliana had her show in Los Angeles on the Disney Channel. And then that took the whole family there. My wife had to be on set with Eliana within 60 feet because that's how the Hollywood industry is now with young children. What we didn't take into consideration is I'm with the Rays at the time. You're working every day. There's no, you don't take off because everyone has a tough situation. What we underestimated is my wife's on set with my daughter from 7 in the morning until 7 at night. I'm at work in Florida with the Tampa Bay Rays, and we have 2 kids in a little apartment in Los Angeles by themselves going stir crazy with no parent there. It definitely created some difficult dynamics, and so we're still trying to figure it out and try to learn how to navigate it, but it's tough.
That's so important to say that, and we chatted about this. We all got in a little bit early, and we stayed up until 3 in the morning just talking about life. It was incredible. I was like, do you bill us, please, because this is amazing. But to your point, you're still figuring it out. Like one of your children is a grown adult. Like you're still figuring it out, and sometimes I think we get impatient. We've been together for almost a decade, married for 2.5 years. And it's like, why aren't we clicking on all cylinders? Why do we have bad days? And everyone has bad days. Like I try to emulate Steph. Like your relationship has always been, as Eric said, like we want what the Moustakases have, like 4 perfect kids and they love each other so much and it's just amazing. It's not amazing every single day. It's not butterflies and rainbows every single day.
It's pretty good.
No, it's pretty
It's
good.
pretty good.
No, but I'm saying you guys
there are bad
argue and
days.
you bicker and that is
Yeah.
okay. And
Yeah.
I think that the social media world and the TikTok world and the influencers, it's not all perfect all the time, and human beings are going to human being, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's how you apologize and it's how you work through it. So please take us through that, because it's so important.
We talk about this all the time. We are always reminding our kids, because the older your kids get, I remember them like this. I remember them like this. And the older they get, it's like, okay, I need to change my perspective, because they're getting older and they're gonna have completely different beliefs as we do. And they're gonna have their own opinions. And we are always telling our kids, Mom and Dad have never raised an 18-year-old boy before. We have no idea what we're doing. And then when he leaves, we already told our daughters, we do not know how to raise 2 daughters on our own. So please have patience with us. But I think there's 2 things that we learned through a lot of mistakes. My wife and I, Melissa and I, learned these 2 things. Number 1 is to say sorry to your families, to your children, especially to your children. Like, a lot of times you'll just have something, we could just tell our kids what to do, we can act a fool, and then completely squash it. To go to our kids and say, I am so sorry for the way I acted. There have been moments where this was so hard for me at first, but apologizing to my kids for the way I treated their mom, like maybe I was a little sharp, maybe I snapped a little bit. And so a buddy of mine said that you apologize to your kids, and to show your daughters and your son, you don't talk to your wife like that. And it was my buddy who I really respected who told me that. I'm like, that's a really good point. And the first time I did it was so hard to do, but like, okay.
Why was it hard to do?
It was hard because it feels prideful. It was prideful. It was
So
just
like, I'm the
pride.
dad, I'm the man of the
I don't need
house.
to apologize.
Yeah. Don't question me.
I'll apologize to my wife, but I don't need to apologize in front of my kids. But I noticed that just because you want to teach, I told my son, he's like, Dad, what if I'm going to make more money than you, this and that? I said, I want you kids to be better than me in every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
I hope you make more money or better or just whatever. And then the other thing was, so apologize is the first one. And then the second one is debriefing tough situations. Like, when you're in the right frame of mind, come back and say, okay, let's talk about what just went down, and having those conversations. And I think those are the 2 that have helped us through some difficult times. Still hard, still very difficult, but
It's amazing how kids are such a game changer, having
Yeah.
kids. So I never, the 2 months when we were in Chicago and Jack was a newborn in Boston, but I never got to really experience playing with a kid. I think it was just short-lived and I didn't really get to fully experience it. But we talk about how when Mila's born, it really just calmed you down so much.
Yeah.
I would have to imagine, like, I knew in Chicago when stuff wasn't going well, those 0 for 4s, those bad days at the office were a lot easier to forget about, because it is now, it's all about the kids.
Exactly.
I could not imagine how that had to have helped you, and it's helped players, because instead of going home, being in your apartment by yourself or with, your significant other, you are still definitely thinking about your performance, but the kids, like you say, wipe it all out.
Yeah, they want to play. They want to have fun. They want dad. They don't want the baseball player. They want dad. They might want to go play baseball, but like, they want to hang out with their dad. They want to be around me. And it's like, I'm not going to drag my little girl down that I went 0 for 5 today with 5 punchies. Like, and she doesn't care. She'd be like, it's okay, Daddy, get him next time. I'm like,
Oh, you're right.
it's unbelievable.
I bet you see a big transition in players that have kids, and it just completely changes their mindset.
We talk about this all the time. I can't tell you how many players talk about having a perspective shift when everything you were saying. I'm like, wow, I've heard so many players say that. A couple of years ago, we had a player get
We're not saying go out and just have a baby.
Yes.
Don't do that.
Exactly. Yeah, great point. Thank you for mentioning that. So we traded for a player, joined us from a West Coast team, came to join the Rays, And him and his wife decided, you know what, we're late in the season, it was trade deadline, just stay in California.
Right.
I'll play with the Rays and I'll see you in the off season or whatever. They had their whole lifestyle there. Kids were in school and everything. And so he came in and he just struggled. And we knew he was way better than he was performing, but he was just struggling. I didn't know him really well. So we're talking one day at batting practice at the Trop. Comes up to me, he's like, "So I'm domed up." I'm like, "Oh, what's going on?" He's like, I missed my family. I just miss them. He goes, "It's literally affecting me on the field and it's affecting everything. And I can't stop thinking about it." And then he goes, we get to a place where you just need to be ready for 7 o'clock. Okay, just 7 o'clock. He's like, "Okay, I just need to lock in for 7. And after a long conversation, we got to a new process. What he decided he's gonna do, first I wanted to understand, okay, what's your best performance state? What emotion, what state do you want your mind to be? He goes, calm and playful. When I'm calm and playful, I'm loose, I'm electric, and I go. But when I'm tense and intense, I struggle. I said, okay, who takes you to calm and playful? Who gets you into that state? Didn't even get to finish the question, like my kids. He goes, my kids, that gets me there. I said, okay, let's do this. It's gonna sound really dumb, really, really dumb, but let's try it. Let's go to your album, and I want you, before the game, just watch videos of your kids and you playing with them. Do you have that? He goes, bro, I have hundreds of videos of my kids playing. I said, just watch them over and over again. No joke, and it wasn't because of that, but he says it was, but the man just clicked. And he put him in the right state, and then he just ended up dominating, signed a huge contract, went to a different team, signed a huge contract. Once he signed, he calls me up, he goes, I didn't realize how big of an impact my kids were gonna have on my career because they took me to a place of perspective and helped me be the best version of myself. To your point, it's amazing how that happens.
Yeah, even so, like my last couple of years, like I wanted to play for my kids. Like I wanted them to see me playing baseball. And so like I kept playing, and my kids are awesome. Like they just love coming to the games. And like another thing I'd always do before every at bat, like I'd make sure I'd find Stephanie, and then my entire family would be standing up. There's 5 of them. They're just waving. And I'm like, this is why I do what I do. And like, even if I strike out, like they don't care. Like there's my dad's out there. And like, now they're so proud. Like they go and tell their friends, like my dad plays Major League Baseball. It's like, I used to, but like I did. And they're so proud. They wear my jerseys all the time. It's like, it's just the coolest thing in the world. And they're like, Daddy, when are you going to go play again? I'm like, I just don't know if we're doing that yet or doing that anymore. But just having the pride that they showed in me is just like, it makes me feel great. Even just sitting here, it makes me feel so good knowing how proud they were of Dad that I was playing baseball. It was awesome.
It's one of the coolest things when you were pregnant with Jack on Father's Day. Case got me a picture of the sonogram of Jack from the ultrasound, put it on the cleats, and I wore those for my
Some people thought it was creepy. I thought it was cute.
It was one of the coolest things, and it gave me just a whole nother feeling of how cool this is going to be about being a father. So happy Father's Day to you guys, and thank you for coming and stealing the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. This is great.
Star of the show.